That number 5 exercise that we like to utilize for the upper body training when we're talking about the Olympic lifts is the lat swings. And so when we're utilizing the lat swings, I like to use either an elevated bench or an incline bench, preferably an elevated bench where you can actually use a barbell. If you can't use a barbell, we like to utilize dumbbells. But the key factor here is I really like to utilize a false grip. So I like to have that thumb draped over top of the barbell or of the dumbbell handle like this. What ends up happening is as we have that false grip, we're gonna really recruit in our lats as we bring that bar back into that bench and we elevate that bar through the full swing and we squeeze those lats, we squeeze our rhomboid at the top, and we really focus on retracting our scaps while we're doing that. If we're retracting our scaps, we're hugging that spine and we're utilizing the lats together, now all of a sudden that position with our upper body is gonna be similar to the position that we're holding right off the floor when we're doing the Olympic lifts. And so that's one of the big key factors that I like behind lat swings, is that it really can enable the bar to stay close without having elbow flexion. If we keep that bar nice and tight with decently firing lats, all of a sudden that bar stays close right off the floor, not only because your knees are clearing back, but also because you have a little bit of control from that wrist flexion, from those lats being a little bit more active, and that's going to help you get into a better position from the knee to the hip to have that big, strong finish. So when we're trying to break down those upper body lifts that we like to utilize specifically for Olympic lifting, we've got to think about what are those demands of the Olympic lifts. We know that there's going to be a lot of overhead work, right? There's a lot of stress on the shoulders. There's a lot of stress on the elbow joints. So we've got to start to think about, is that the main focus? But then also we've got to think about, how can we actually keep the bar tight? How can we have that big finish, that big shrug with our upper body, or a big drive if we're talking about the jerk? How can we factor in and get a little bit more kilos if we have a little bit stronger upper body as well? So when we can take that and start to analyze, all right, shoulders are going to be beat up. There's a lot of overhead work. There's a lot of shrugging. So that's one factor that we've got to take into play. We've also got to take into play the activity of our lats and what goes into supporting and being a strong foundational structure for our entire upper back. And then finally, we can sit there and say, all right, is there any performance enhancement that we can get out of those upper body movements? And that's going to lead us immediately into that number 4 exercise, and that's going to be the Z press. So when we're starting to think about what we can do better from a performance enhancement perspective, that's where the Z press comes into play. And this is an exercise that I stole directly from the Savicus. This is a movement where you're gonna sit on your butt. You're gonna have to squeeze your abs. That's gonna be the foundation of the entire movement. You take that bar right out of the rack, and now you have to squeeze your abs while you're driving vertically. So this is almost a position that's going to be very similar to the dip and drive in the jerk. And so one of the reasons why I like to use Z press is that it's a little bit harder to go really heavy. So even my heavyweight lifters are not going to be able to do more than 100 kilos. And that's going to be if we're talking about very strong heavyweight lifters. Most lifters are going to be sitting around 40, 50, 60, 70 kilos because there's no support to the lower back. There's no support like a bench would provide. So here you've got to take that bar out, and it trains your trunk, it trains your abs, it trains your back to fire together to provide that support for that big vertical drive. And you'll see lifters right off the bat start to fall backwards if they don't know how to engage their trunk as effectively as possible. It actually trains the body how to work properly. So you could give these people all the cues in the world, but when you give them the Z press, it actually works because it forces them to execute as precisely as possible. Then you can take that Z press feeling of trunk support, of trunk stability, and transfer that directly over to that dip and drive on the jerk. And so that's why we like utilizing Z press. I recommend once a week, anywhere from 4 to 6 sets for about 5 to 7 reps. So before we get into that third exercise, make sure that you like, you subscribe, and you ring that notification bell so we can help you become an absolute monster in the realm of Olympic weightlifting or in the world of sports performance. So that third key exercise for upper body development for Olympic weightlifting is going to be the tele-extensions. And so this is an exercise that I learned from Charles Poliquin. This is a movement that I believe he stole from a biomechanist named Jerry Tell. And so what this movement is this can be done on a decline bench or this can be done on a flat bench. And you're gonna take that bar back deep past your head. So you're gonna lengthen your lats, you're gonna lengthen your triceps, and then you're gonna pull those lats while you maintain elbow flexion, and that bar will just gradually graze right over your face. You're gonna pull that down to your sternum, and then you're going to press. And the reason why I love this movement is because it helps lengthen the lats. It's gonna help create more overhead stability when we're talking about the snatch, when we're talking about the jerk. But on top of that, it's also going to really light up the triceps. And when you start to do things overhead where the lats have to work in conjunction with the triceps, now they coordinate a little bit more effectively. Now they make your lockout a lot more effective. And one thing that you can utilize that I really like to do with tele-extensions is to put some chains on it. When you put some chains on it, then as you're extending off the sternum, your triceps are going to be lit up. So that's going through 3 different range of motions that are going to be targeting all 3 heads of the tricep. So when all 3 heads of the tricep start to get more active, and they're more active relative to our lats, now we're going to get a lot of strength, and now we're going to drive big time for that key lockout so you don't get called on those press outs. But again, too, think about there's a lot of stress on the elbows. The stronger our triceps are, the healthier they're going to be long term. So this is another key factor behind executing those tele-extensions. I recommend doing these once a week, 4 to 5 sets, 12 to 17 reps. They can make you pretty sore when you first start to put them into your program, so just be aware of that. But long term, these can lead to a really good tricep development that's going to carry over very well to the Olympic weightlifting platform. That second key lift that we like to utilize for upper body development for the Olympic lifts is neutral grip pull-ups. And there's a couple different reasons why I love utilizing neutral grip pull-ups. I love utilizing all forms of pull-ups when we're talking about Olympic weightlifting. But again, it comes back to strengthening your lats. It comes back to when you're doing a neutral grip pull-up to actually learn how to scap, retract, and then really recruit from those lats as we pull vertically. And on top of that, similar to the lat swings, I like to see a false grip when we're utilizing this, because that's going to lead to a little bit more wrist flexion. So if we've got that false grip, that wrist flexion will carry over to that pulling position right off of the floor. It's going to help keep that bar a little bit tighter. If we get just a little bit of that wrist flexion involved, that's going to go a long way as far as kilos in our big lifts. But then when we're doing those neutral grip pull-ups, it's important that we really pull the chest, the sternum, all the way to the bar. It's squeeze the sternum into the bar at the very top. That's going to emulate where we want to be when we're pulling, when we're even catching that clean, when we're in that dip and drive and the jerk. The stronger our lats become, the healthier our shoulders will be. The stronger our biceps become, the healthier our shoulders and the healthier our elbows will be. So it's important to utilize neutral grip pull-ups. I recommend doing pull-ups anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week. You can do them weighted for 4 sets of 4 and then 1 drop set for as many as you can get, or you can do 5 sets of 5 to 7 reps with a little bit of weight to help improve the strength in your lats. Now, all these movements are really complicated when it comes down to periodization. They can be difficult to program. You know, where do we put the lat swings in conjunction with neutral grip pull-ups? Or how can we utilize Z-press to improve our dip and drive and our jerk without taking away from what we might be doing with push presses or even jerks from the boxes or anything along those lines? And tele-extensions, how can we program that without really banging us up? But fortunately, we've put together our bodybuilding for Olympic weightlifting program, where we've got 12 weeks of bodybuilding based training interjected with Olympic weightlifting. And we even go into further detail in all this in our parabolic periodization book and course, where we start to dig into how we periodize all these different accessories to try to optimize what we're trying to get out of the platform. So if you know how to periodize your accessories effectively, you can really start to iron out any weak points. And that's exactly what we do in our parabolic periodization book and course that's available at garagestrength.com. Now, that number one key exercise that I love to utilize for upper body strength for Olympic weightlifting is going to be dips. And there's a couple different reasons. Most lifters are very, very good at dips. Most lifters don't have any issues when they're executing a dip, and the dips don't really bang up the shoulders at all. There can be some lifters that if they're not on a V bar, if some people have dips that are just standard rack dips, but if you have a V bar, you should be perfectly fine. Some standard dip racks, some people might get a little bit of a tug on their sternum, so I do recommend trying to utilize a V setup when we're talking about dips. But when we go back to the dips themselves, the reason why I love utilizing them is that if we think about, the tricep kickback is just a little tickle to your tricep, right? The dips are a kick right in the balls to your tricep. They are one of the best ways to develop a ton of strength in your triceps. And like we mentioned, tricep strength is key to the lockout. It's also key to protecting the health of our elbows. So if we get really, really good at dips, and I even recommend pausing at the top in that full lockout extension position. When you're pausing in that full lockout, now we can start to feel the contraction that we want in the triceps, and that's going to carry over to the same exact feeling that we want to feel when we're punching inside the jerk or even in the snatch. So I love utilizing the dips. I love building a very strong foundation in the dips, and that's going to lead to extremely strong triceps. So I recommend doing dips, just pushing them once a week, but doing 5 to 6 sets. And I always recommend do 3 to 5 reps trying to push that load. Do 1 to 2 sets trying to push some serious hypertrophy. The more size we get in that tricep, the healthier it's going to be, the healthier our elbows are going to be, and the stronger our lockout is going to be. So if you want more information about Olympic weightlifting training, you can click on this card right here. Until next time, guys, peace.